Let's talk about it.
Hello and welcome back to Thicc Radio, the award-winning podcast where we talk about gaining, fetishism, and everything plus size. I'm James.
I'm Tim, so let's get into it. Today we're welcoming back to the show two of our good friends. We've got Josh and Izzy.
Hey.
Hello again.
Hey boys, how you doing?
How we're doing? How about y'all?
We're real
Same.
good.
Same.
We're a little bit like sluggish from a weekend trip, but it was a good time.
Oh my goodness, were you boys having some gain of fun by any chance?
We certainly weren't. We're actually at a good. Sorry to speak so candidly about
Killing
that.
me.
We just got back from a good friend of mine's wedding out in Washington, D.C.
Nice. I
That
was
good
kind
fun.
of, I was kind of hoping you would be like, we absolutely were not. We were miserable and just having such a...
Well, you
The
made it
dry
sound like
wasteland in DC.
when you started off, I was like, oh, did you guys like go spring people from a cult or something? This sounds really serious.
It's like culty programming in an Airbnb.
No, quite the opposite. We're in a big old Airbnb with a bunch of lesbians and gays, so
That was
good.
so fun.
Oh, that sounds lovely. You know, when you, Tim, when you said like springing people from a cult, my mind immediately went to "But I'm a Cheerleader," and it's like the two old men that are just trying to like get the kids out of the conversion camp into the van. It's like, we know what this looks like, but don't ask questions. Get in the van. Let's go. Like, oh,
Oh my
We're
god.
ex-gays.
so silly.
I love it.
But listen, we're going to be chatting about your two this week. So, are we ready to get into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Mhm.
Fabulous. So, just for anyone listening who may not be aware, your two are a couple, correct?
Yes, sir.
Oh yeah.
Again, one of you is just like, what? No.
Are we a thing?
Wait,
Have we
what-
talked about this?
What are we?
Yeah. When are you going to tell me about this? But you're a couple and you're all gorgeous. Now, where did you two meet? How did you meet? Give us the little, the little story.
I'll let Josh take the forefront. He loves
Yeah,
to tell the
I
story.
love to tell this story. So I had started a Gainer Instagram after I realized that I probably don't want bellies showing up on my regular one just in public or with my friends around. And that's how I got to talking with this one. And so Izzy and I had been like chatting online for some time before that, before we actually met. June of 2022, we met at our local, Michigan Pride, because I'm in Grand Rapids, and I put out a story like asking like, hey, Michigan Gainers, like who's going to Pride? I'd love to meet up. And he responded right away and was like, yeah, I'm coming and I'm bringing our friend and like blah, blah, blah. So I had never met him before, never heard his voice before. So I was like really eager to like meet up with new friends. And it was after a long day of tech rehearsal, and I just sped back to Grand Rapids and wanted to meet them and just get some food from a food truck. And I pick them up, and he gets in my front seat and goes, hey, with his really deep voice, and I almost lost my shit. I was like wet downstairs. But then it proceeded to have a great rest of our day in conversation. You were talking quite a lot because you were nervous to meet me, and I thought that was really cute. And we hit it off right away over 2 burgers because I was starving. And and the rest is history. I invited them to stay over with me that night because I was like, fucking Airbnb, like just stay with me. And we stayed up until 4 a.m. talking, stuffing, getting down and dirty with it. And then we both had like a somewhere really early to go the next day, but then he kept coming back to visit me, even though he was living 5 hours away. And so I was like, oh, he's a nice friend. What a nice friend to come visit me like a friend 5 different times.
Well, in our chats, especially before we met up initially, we were kind of, as you do with someone you meet before, you talk to them, you get to know a little bit about them. And we both have come out of our last civilian relationships kind of talking about how we're like, we want to take a break. We're just kind of here to have fun. And especially we just wanted to connect more with community members in our area. So we're like, yeah, let's just meet up, let's just talk, like we both were explicitly like, we are not looking for anything serious. We are not looking for a relationship. We are here just to have fun. And then after our third date, Josh starts crying when I leave him
Oh my
now.
God.
And now we're like, what does this mean? Why are we feeling this way? As if like
I was so genuinely confused. I was like, I don't know why I'm crying.
it,
Like, I'm so sad he
it
left.
couldn't have been more obvious what we were feeling, but both of us were just so like, it could mean nothing.
And then he takes me on this like massively romantic wine date. So now, like, fast forward to September the same year. He asked me if I've ever been wine tasting before, and I said no. So he's like, cool, block off this weekend. I'm treating you. And I'm like, what do you mean? He he got a hotel. He wine and dined me French food. He took me to two different wineries. Like, it was the most fucking romantic thing I've ever experienced in my whole life, up until that point, because you've been nothing but romantic since. But and that's when I was like, I think these feelings are love and it's beautiful. And now we've been together 2+ years since then.
God love you. I don't remember what any of that is like.
Tim's like, I'm from Ohio. He proposed over a meth needle, and I said, oh, that'll do. He took a shit in the river, and I took that as a proposal. He punched me in the balls, and I said, God, that was wonderful. Do it again.
Do you have to make me sound like such a hag?
Baby, this is you when you talk. Well, that wouldn't happen in Cleveland. In Cleveland, they set back to your asshole, and then that's a proposal. Like, that's... You laugh because it's fucking true.
I didn't have a problem with his proposal. I just hated that it had to happen twice.
Oh my God.
Setting my asshole on fire wasn't enough. He set my mother's asshole on fire, and then the message finally was made clear to me.
Oh my God.
Oh God. Anyway, no, I'm just kidding. I am a romantic at heart. I think everybody knows that, so that's very sweet.
Oh, thank you.
Well, Tim, how did you and Matt get together?
Pride. He came up from Columbus to Cleveland, and he messaged me over Scruff, I think it was, or Grinder, one of the two. And he was like, "Oh, yeah, happy Pride, yada yada." And I was like, "Oh, happy Pride." I'm going to, and at the time I was going to the only leather bar we have here, and I was like, "I'm going to be there at like 2 p.m. If you see me, let's have a drink or something." And I noticed when he walked in, but like he wouldn't make eye contact with me. He was so shy. I had to go over and start the conversation with him. And I think within 5 minutes, we ended up talking about Clive Barker somehow. And I was like, oh, okay, I need to date this guy because nobody else ever talks about this. So
I like how Tim leaves out the part that he's actually really hot. And so it's like, he was really shy to talk to me for some reason. Like, I can't possibly understand why. Like, I can think of
you've seen Matt. He's also beautiful. Like,
he's also very beautiful. But like, it's that thing of, Josh, is maybe you can relate to this. Like, when you first meet someone who, to whatever aesthetic you find pleasing, you meet them and you go, oh my God, you're actually really beautiful. Like, you do kind of like lose a sense of yourself. You do a little bit, get a bit like, you know.
Oh yeah. Like,
you get Twitter painted. Yeah, you're talking about you get Twitter painted.
There you go.
Oh, Twitter painted. That's a good word.
Yeah, very old timey, but so am I.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like kind of like floating my way with hearts in my eyes.
Yeah,
across the room to this person, and then accidentally running into them instead of saying hello.
Yeah, it comes from Bambi, I'm pretty sure, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, I think it's older than that. I mean, I don't know for certain whether the movie invented the phrase, but I think it existed before that.
Bumper, I hardly know her. And that's forever on a podcast. You're welcome.
Now, let me ask, how do you feel, and, obviously we're digging a little bit into your relationship today, so all of these questions through the lens of as much as you want to share, right? But as much as you feel comfortable to divulge, how do you feel your experiences in this current relationship differ from relationships you'll have had with civilians in the past?
I think the biggest and most obvious one is sharing such a deep integral kink and having like such a more deep sense of understanding with each other. Because obviously with a lot of civilians, they might have their own kinks, but when it comes to gaining and, fetishism as a kink, there's a really different understanding you should have with someone when it comes to that. So I feel like, for example, Josh is the first gainer I've dated. I've only dated civilians beforehand. So feeling this like different sense of understanding instead of having like where it almost feels like you're like coming out to your partner again, but you're like, hey, I need you to sit down. I need to explain this thing about this. And just again, like just like coming out, you might get a mixed response. You might get like oh, that's really nice, or oh, I don't want that at all. So it's not having to go through that was obviously very refreshing, and having to be like, whew, don't gotta worry about that now in this relationship. But I feel like at least that was kind of like the biggest like, that's nice kind of
Yeah.
thing. Starting obviously, getting to know somebody is also great too, but at least getting over that hurdle felt like a big relief, and having to feel like, okay, now that this is out of the way, we can kind of jumpstart the relationship now.
Yeah, and likewise, I think it's refreshing to have that common ground right away. I mean, I've dated only two other guys before, and both of them were narcissists before, so it's also immediately like infinitely better. But my first boyfriend, I remember so vividly, like, I was 24, just wanting to get out into the sphere of dating people. I was actually probably like 20, 26, but he was my first like serious relationship, like someone who I wanted to date consistently. And he was a little bit on the chubbier side, but like the big difference between us was I was trying to explain this to him of like, I kind of like, someone with a little extra something, or like trying to like, use gentler words that are more endearing, not fat, or not like, you're huge and I love that, or I didn't want to talk about his belly, talk about that fat ass or something like that. But he just sincerely hated the fact that he was bigger, and he thought that when he was skinnier, he was more attractive. And he could not wrap his brain around the fact that I thought that he was attractive when he was bigger or thicker or whatever. And that was really sad to me, and it was hard for me to grapple with. But then, like, fast forward to now, obviously, like, both of us were much smaller when we started dating. And whether we had stayed exactly that same size or grown, I think that we would have both been very happy. But yeah, it's just like it creates a lot more common ground when you've got already this understanding going for you.
I feel like that's a common thing that comes up in that every time you date, right? Not having to think twice about what you say and how you say it, because the person has this inbuilt understanding that you don't have to spend energy and time and effort to perfectly explain this thing to this person who is without context. You can just arrive, ready, done, lay it out, and move forward. It's wonderful. And I would certainly say in my own experience, I've exclusively dated people who are larger. And certainly you can sense that difference for people who are at peace with their size versus people who are not.
Way to put it too.
And certainly I would say, like, you have the opportunity to date whoever you want. I'm not saying you can't, but for me and my household, I serve the lard. No, for me and my house, in my experience, if the person you are with is dealing with some deep-seated like anti-fatness, y'all are going in opposite directions, and
I think that's what ultimately drove the wedge between me and the first guy that I ever like moved out of my house to like move in with, be serious boyfriend with. He was a bear type body. He was taller than me. He had a lot of muscle tone, but then he had a typical squishy bear belly, and he hated it. He hated the fact that he was bigger. He was never thinking that he was good enough for anything. And then on top of all that, he had these huge abandonment issues. So that didn't work out. But I would think back on, I'd be like, God, if you had just been a little bit more secure, this could have worked out. So, like, what's the biggest misconception about two gainers dating each other? Because I have a suspicion that there's a lot of like imagining of what that kind of relationship is like. But give us the reality. What is it? It's not just a never-ending food fest, right?
Yeah, I think what a lot of people assume a gainer relationship is like is pretty much just like any gainer freak you've read. It's like, oh, the fridge is emptied every night. We're just walking around having sex on everything. We're just two giant fat hogs all the time. Like,
Gaining
obviously,
50 pounds a month.
yeah, like obviously it's hot in theory, and yeah, I'm not gonna lie, like there are some hot moments that we can share because we share that together. But truthfully, like any relationship, our individual selves come first. Like, he is a person, I am a person, we have a shared fetish, but I'm not one gonna fetishize him my entire life because I know that. And yes, being a couple that shares this makes it a lot more easy to have fun. And, we can play into fantasies that we've had because we're like, you're into this, I'm into this, I want to hear what you like, I want to know what you like. So I feel like, we really are just like most couples. I would say like nothing is super crazy about it, but I do
Mhm.
just think people assume that most couples, at least in the gainer world, are just like always nonstop with the kink itself. Obviously, how you present yourself online, like I'm sure we all know a few gainer couples that we've seen who have, promoted content, rather that's more like hot and heavy or more lighthearted. So everyone likes to present themselves differently, and I
Mhm.
feel like that's how we see couples, especially in this sphere, and that's kind of what we go off of.
I
So
love that
obviously,
you said that about the content, because that's the thing that I think that a lot of us just are not realizing, is that it's content that's being created, so it's supposed to be flashy. It's supposed to get your attention.
exactly. But yeah, so it's essentially just kind of like, especially with how you present yourself in a kink space is usually how people interpret that. Obviously, we're not promoting our bellies all over civilians. We're not going to every family gathering talking about how much we love gaining weight in front of a bunch of strangers. You know, our personas are also a little bit different online versus in person. And, it's good to have kind of a balance between the two. Like, obviously, there is some genuineness from ourselves when we're online in the kink space, but obviously we like to have a respect of those boundaries and privacy between ourselves and that community.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, also, like, kind of just speaking for us individually, like, there have been some DMs that have come, at least into my inbox, I'm sure you've received them too, that people are like, you're such a gainer power couple or whatever, especially when I tell them that he's a professional chef. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's a dream. Like, we, of course, have nice food around our house, like, majority of the time. But the reality is that, like, we both have limited budgets. Like, I'm a musician, I don't make that much. And he's also like, we're saving to move soon. So, like, we're trying to figure out how our grocery bill is not going to wipe our savings, and we can make work. I mean, Izzy, you're so much more creative with like dealing with the ingredients. You're an ingredient household person that we have in our fridge or our pantry. And I'm like, Mister, if it's frozen and I can heat it up, then that's great. Or I'm like a leftovers fiend. Like you'll see me polishing off every bit of leftovers and you would rather create something brand new.
Mhm.
So like even our philosophies of how to gain and how we cook and how those sort of things differ even in the same household, and we like have been taking some time since we've been living together, like the past 9 months or so, since we've been living together, to try to figure out how that balances ourselves and what works for us. I'm a busy person and I don't have time. And he is very, very gracious to make me lunches sometimes, but he can't do it all the time because that's a lot to ask a partner to make me lunch all the time. So like yeah, it's a fantasy and it's lovely, and yes, we could be considered a quote unquote power couple, but like also think of the reality and like the sameness and the mundane that is too.
I mean, I'm happy people think of us so highly like that.
I'm really
I
flattered.
truthfully feel like I make no difference sometimes in the gainer pool, and then I hear that, and I'm like, oh,
I really wish
people
that you could
notice,
see
I
my
guess.
DMs. Like you should see my DMs. The people are talking about you all the time.
It's strange, isn't it? Like that perception of other people, and like you never know. Like you don't know what's going on behind closed doors as far as like people's perceptions of you. So like it's cool that people have like that positive inflection in the both of you, but I want to zero in. Y'all have both just expressed some really brilliant things, and I think that boils down to the fact that we are all multifaceted human beings. The conversation that anytime we talk about relationships and dating and gaining and sex and all of these tropes, it's the plot twist. You are full-fledged humans 24/7, and most of that time y'all ain't horny and bucking it to pig slop in the trough. Like it is, y'all are being conscientious humans. When you're around family members and friends, you aren't having gainer themed conversations necessarily. And sometimes we have that question that people will bring up. How do you deal with conversations of weight gain around family members and friends, people who don't know but are like, why are you getting fatter? What the fuck's going on? The beauty of a gainer partner is you actually have a tag team, a tag team wrestler. You've got a bitch in your corner who you can work together to, not to say have to come up with a story, but like you can work together to field those questions and navigate those challenges. I love that you mentioned, the fact that Izzy, you're a cook, and Josh, you Clearly are not.
Yeah, we're learning. Learning is great, and I have the best teacher.
And you're learning, but you know the gainer thought of, oh well, uh, we must all think the same and want to approach food the exact same way, and like no, bitch, like people are different within this shit. And I think just sometimes the amount of times that I've had run-ins with individuals, whether it's through sexy chat or a potential dalliance, where just they have had no conversation with me about how shit's gonna go down. They just truly walk into the room, dick in hand, going, well, I've been jacking off to this fantasy for the past 10 years, so surely you must want the exact same thing. There'll be no edits and no discussion. Actually, I've just walked in here expecting this, and you will perform the sex the way I the way I would.
Having been on the receiving end of that, yeah,
It's cringe. It's cringe and it's weird.
Awkward.
You know,
Yeah.
again, part of the theme of these episodes is to explore gainer relationships and be like, a lot of people have got some questions. What's the tea? And I feel like this is step number one. You'll take your hand up your dick. That's the person in front of you. Like, that's step number one. Like, be
Yeah.
human with that person. God damn.
Yeah, and we're a very big Venn diagram too, because like diving into, surface level gainer kink, and then you have like the inflation, blueberry, mpreg. So like, me and Josh do share a decent amount, but obviously there are some things that he enjoys more than I do, some things that I, might necessarily not participate in, but will, okay, get the list out. God. But like being a romantic partner, I also want to make sure, I know I'm not obligated to fulfill every single fantasy, but being his, main person, I want to at least help facilitate whatever I can with that. Maybe one day we want to try out something a little bit more, related to what he wants, and might vice versa. And sometimes even the instance where one partner might pick up on other kinks. For example, like I have a big burping kink. Like I really enjoy burping and belching and stuff like that,
That's a good
especially
story.
when it comes in the context of gaining. Because, for me, it's kind of like a very masculine sign of power, a good sign of like satisfaction, or like, like I'm just so full. So, I could talk about that. Josh wasn't necessarily into it at first, but the more that I explained it to him and the more that we kind of incorporated it, he's like, like try, like I didn't really like apologize when I did in front of him. And now it's gotten to the point where I almost feel like Josh is more into it than I am, which is
which happens.
Which happens a lot. It's like literally like every time, rather I burp or someone else burps, he like perks up. He like looks out and he's like, do it this way, do it with me. Like, so
well, it began with you just giving me permission in the first place. That I think it was only our second or third date that you would come over during that summer, and you were making me risotto style eggs, and you were teaching me how. And I was next to you, like preparing something or making the toast or something like that, and I burped, and I was like, I burped away from you and apologized, and you were like, you don't have to apologize, and I was like, oh. And Artie was aware that this was a thing, but I didn't realize that he was like that into it. And then it kind of became a joke between us that he could fake mad at me if I wouldn't burp in his face. So now, now it's become that.
I like Pavloved him so hard, he's into it more than I am now.
That's
You
fantastic.
mad about it? Oh, no, not at all. I think it's funny.
No, I love it. My civilian partner is a pup, and so my favorite thing to chide him with is to be like, "Ugh, stupid pup," and just like storm off. Like cute ways, like as a couple, you integrate things and do moments like that. Not to be that person, I want to reference something here that is a thought experiment that I've been working on. The idea of what are the gainer love languages, right? Love handle languages. I don't know. But title in. But Tim, don't roll your motherfucker eyes at me, bitch. How dare you?
you and your damn puns.
Go, ma'am. Okay, fine. Whatever. The gainer love languages. Anyways, one of the languages that I think is very identifiable is what I would call facilitation. And facilitation essentially meaning like creating a space that nurtures that sense of gainerness and that sense of satisfaction. And so I think part of that facilitation is, hey, I'm going to help cook because maybe that's more of my skill set. Maybe I'm going to, if my partner is extremely large, maybe I'm gonna take on a bit of a service role at times and be like, do you want a treat? Do you want a snack? I'm getting up. Do you want me to get you anything? And then I bring it over to you. You know, there's all sorts of little ways that can happen, but it's essentially, and I think this is ultimately like the crux of a relationship. It's like, it's never about the grandstanding. It's always about the little things that adds up to make the big thing. And so I think facilitation is like all the little things we can do in a gainer relationship, whether or not you're with a civilian, but something that you can do that helps to just like fulfill or recognize or speak power to just a part of your gainer truth. And it really sounds like the pair of you, even though, like, as you say, you're still working on that, figuring it out with one another, it really sounds like you've already got a great sense of that with one another.
Oh yeah, it has been through trials and tribulations, I will not lie. Obviously, when it comes to any kind of integration of a person and kinks, it's much more finding the common ground, finding the understanding. The big thing that like my personal thing when it comes to relationship is like I want to find it on communication. Like I am so big on things being portrayed the way that they should be. I don't have bullshit. I am not someone who wants to hide behind, a facade. Like I am like, this is who I am. This is what I want. If you say something I understand, I would be like, explain to me now, and vice versa. Like if you don't get what I'm saying, hope that you would explain it to me, or I will ask like, is that what you meant? Is this what you mean? So, going forward with that, I'm just very much just like, I want to make this work. I want to know what we need to do and XYZ kind of thing.
Yeah, you're certainly not any bullshit.
Yes.
And it's not that I am either, but it's, my earth signy Capricorniness, it can sometimes just be a little bit too forward or too blunt about some things. And so he's been teaching me how to approach some things just in our regular relationship. It's not even gainer related, but just in a gentler or more thoughtful, like just taking a minute to like think about my words before I say them. And that also transcribes to gainer related things or sexual related things, just like being thoughtful of like, I know that I want this, but like, how do I like present this in a way of like, I'm feeling this way without expectation,
Mhm.
or I might like to do blah, blah, blah. How would you feel about that? Or how would you feel if I brought you a boost right now? Because there are plenty of times that like I'm in the mood for boosting like every night. And he's like, can we chill? Like literally just like take a normal night in and just like hang out on the couch and don't have to be stuffed as fuck. And I'm like, yeah, like that's very balanced. I mean, quite honestly, the biggest thing that like you've helped me with is like learning moderation in gaining so that I don't have a bunch of problems. Because personally, like we both are in a health gainerism. We don't really want to be like completely unhealthy and stop our hearts like doing this thing. We would rather live for a long time, not a good time. So if we can do this in a way that is healthfully beneficial to us and maybe doesn't wreck my voice with that reflux, then like he's helping me do that and I'm helping him do that too.
Yeah, especially if I want you to, be my life partner. I want you to be there for most of the life.
Yes.
Absolutely. So Josh, you're a Capricorn. Izzy, star sign?
Sagittarius.
Oh, well, I don't know. Tim, you're the fucking horoscope bitch. What does that mean?
That's a pretty good pairing as far as I'm concerned. Sagittariuses are, well, both of your signs are fiery. I mean, even though you're both, well, Izzy's a fire sign, Josh is a earth sign, but Capricorns, like Josh was saying, are blunt and forward, and Sagittariuses don't usually take things too personally. They always mean what they say, and they have this insane wanderlust.
And let me tell you, the wanderlust is constantly rearranging our furniture. Like this room will not be the same tomorrow.
I like change. I enjoy things that move.
And he utilizes my muscles to do it.
My partner and I, well, actually, Tim, what is Matt again?
What do you think he is? He's a chaos
Oh,
goblin.
right, he's a Scorpio. No, that's right. So, like, you're a Cancer, he's a Scorpio. That's like just tumultuous waters, sort of like bubbling and mixing together.
Yeah, it's a constant push me, pull you the tide. It's the meeting of the great salt and the great fresh water.
I'm also a Scorpio, and then my partner Tom is a Gemini, and I've been told by several people that apparently that is one of the worst combinations you can ever have in a zodiac. So
I don't know. I don't know. Cancer and Aries together, I've had no luck with that.
But he's a good pup. I like him. Hey Tom, I know you're not listening.
So Josh, you said that being with Izzy taught you moderation within gaining. Are there any other ways that you guys have influenced each other's gaining journeys? Be it that, incorporating foods that you wouldn't normally incorporate, or any kind of, I don't know where I'm going with this.
Well, I can at least I want to expound more even on the moderation thing because my gaining journey was brief before I met Izzy, of me actually wanting to change my own body and not just be an admirer or an encourager kind of role. So I dove headfirst in because it was also I was finally taking my moment and my chance to not resent my twink body at the time. So I was trying to change dramatically right away because I wanted a belly right away. I wanted to be bigger right away. I wanted bigger muscles right away. And so I was doing some pretty extreme things at the time, like constructing my gainer shakes in ways that are not dietitian approved whatsoever. My body was rejecting it. It was not happening, but I was trying to make it happen. It was causing vocal issues for me. And I was also stuffing myself to the point of not keeping it. And it wasn't helping my goals. And I think that Izzy was helping me specifically slow down or at least find my limits in a healthier way instead of pushing them past the limit all the time, you know?
And I think
Go ahead.
And the big thing on that too is also integrating our kinks together, and also a big thing that comes with it is how we want to go about gaining. Like Josh was saying, especially when he was ready to start gaining, he just went full swing into it, as most of us do when we start off, especially those who were very small when they started.
I mean, we're excited because you're excited for any kind of change.
Well, of course, yeah. And when I started my gaining journey too, about 5 years ago, officially, I also was very similar. I literally had a giant blender full of boost in serious mass, and I don't even know how I finished that at the time because it was an ungodly amount of terrible things for my body.
I mean, you were younger. That's
probably
what also
helped. The point I'm getting at is that as we are doing the gaining journey together now, it's not necessarily just how I want to do it, how you want to do it, but it's also finding ways of doing it together and having to realize, oh, what I wanted to do might not exactly be what I think is right now, and kind of tailoring that experience and tailoring your goals to kind of, work side by side as well as together. So kind of like Josh was saying, he wanted to go a little faster. I see gaining a bit more as I want to incorporate it as a lifestyle. I'm not trying to over fetishize myself, but I also want to, enjoy my fatness as I get bigger. So when it comes to how I put on weight or when I put on weight is much more gradual. It's not obviously it's great to see the scales go up, but I also don't want to be constantly disappointed in myself when I don't see the scales go up.
Right.
Oh my God, talk about that. Talk about it, my God. Do not ever ask me again, oh, have you weighed yourself recently? Baby, the scales, that is and I truly am not joking when I say this, it is a trigger. Don't ask me to weigh my fucking self. I know the answer's not going to be what I want it to be. All that's going to do is make me upsetty spaghetti. It's going to kill my appetite. I'm going to go crawl into bed and be depressed truly for the next 12 hours. I'm letting you know, this is a surefire way to fuck me the fuck up. So, no. Damn it!
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I'm definitely not a stress eater either. So any kind of thing, any inclination of me not feeling good, my appetite goes down. So being able to apply the gaining lifestyle in a way that brings me happiness, because I don't want to regret anything. I don't want to vindicate this lifestyle because it's not exactly what I want. So trying to find a peaceful balance with gaining when it comes to the long-term goals, I'm not going to be all right, 5 pounds every week. I'm going to be hopefully by the end of the year I'll hit 200 or so and so. And and obviously, especially living with a partner, life things happens, job things happens, relationship, family things happen. So
you just get busy.
Yeah, and sometimes you're just too busy. So it's just kind of having this ebb and flow of maybe if we're in a good period, let's kickstart and kind of up our gains. Let's maybe try to do some more fun things together. Maybe we have financial hardship. Then we're all right, we know that we can't really, unfortunately, delve into food or boost or shake. So, let's do our best to maintain, but, still enjoy ourselves. So it's really just this really big changing and essentially just going with the flow when it comes to our goals for ourselves, for each other, how we want to support that, and most importantly, just being happy with each other in that, obviously, if we're forcing ourselves to be miserable in that gaining journey, isn't going to do well for our relationship, and vice versa for the relationship into our gaining. So, just truthfully, just kind of we're talking about, being the little things. It's the little things. And really enjoying that is really what helps us get through this. You know, obviously the big picture is great, but without celebrating the little things in between, then it makes it a lot harder to be happy about it.
Right. And even to add, like, a lot of this may be like, we're doing every bit of this together. We don't. Like, there are plenty of times in our Gainer relationship that I would like to stuff myself in the evening, and Izzy's like, no, thanks, babe, but I'll rub your belly while you do it. And it's like a little bit of like encouragement. But there's sometimes where like, I'm just kind of like on my own because I'm feeling it and like I'm comfortable doing that and he loves me doing that. There are some times where like I'm out of town and he's like, haha, I'm gonna get high and blah 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 blah. And like I have never seen you around her in your entire life. And I'm like, holy shit, that's so cool that we can just like, we're not bound to doing this together. We can have plenty of moments of doing this independently because we've like put all this time in like the little things and encouragements and like conversations and talks into how we understand our gaining journey and we know how to support each other even when we're not doing it together.
Because we're always supportive no matter what that is. And obviously, before we've met, we've been a part of this community for a long time. So, we might have had some more long-term encourager friends or some feeder friends from long ago. And obviously, we're not going to be like, sorry guys, I'm in a relationship now. We are.
You know,
Yes.
I'm legitimately curious about something for this conversation because like I know that when I was younger, I kind of I put a big stamp on monogamy because I was raised like my parents are still together. And as far as I've known, like they've been monogamous with one another. Obviously, I don't know their private life, but from a child's perspective and growing up, like that became the norm to me. So I put a lot of emphasis on monogamy when I was young, but the older I'm getting, the more I'm evolved I'm becoming, and I'm realizing that it's not really like, and when we talk about like sex in our community, we're not usually talking about traditional penetrative sex anyway.
That's
Mhm.
really
But
fair.
even in those circumstances, like, do you guys think that monogamy really is just gonna kind of become like, I don't know, go the way of the dinosaur? I don't know if it will completely dissolve. Like, there's always going to be people who don't want to go outside of their relationships, but do you think that non-monogamy will become the norm and we might actually see things like, marriages of thruples and, you know, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I feel like it might not like I think monogamy will still be fairly prevalent when it comes to like non-monogamy and like we are in an open relationship, like we do, encourage and
Yeah.
see people
Each of us see
outside of
other
our
people.
yeah,
Hmm.
but we do it in a very healthy way. Like for like a little personal note, like I am truthfully not very sexually aroused all the time. Like, it takes especially when taking medication now, it's like sometimes I just have a really hard time, getting excited for it. And it's not that I don't find Josh like unattractive, or it's not that I'm not sexually interested in him,
I'm
but
not
oh my God.
sexy.
Look, the things I can go about this man, let me tell you.
Oh my
Anyways,
God.
but on the other end, Josh has a very extreme sex drive at some points where,
Oh yeah, it's like it's annoying. It's literally
like I will
annoying.
see
No,
him be
I know. I'm still there. I'm still there too.
so when it comes to that too, like it's also the other understanding of being like, like once again, like I know I'm not obligated to fulfill all that for you, but I want to help facilitate that. And, being in the gainer sphere, it does feel like non-monogamy is a bit more common, or at least what people seek out, because obviously with certain partners, you
Mhm.
know, we're really excited to meet other people in the community. And, it's fun to also have a slightly more sexual slash intimate experience with other bigger folks too, especially because maybe we'll find other body types that we find really attractive, or
Oh
maybe
yeah.
we have
Yeah.
other, like I was saying earlier, like we've known a lot of people in this community before who we've also had very explicit conversations with before, and as long as we're being upfront about how we feel about that or what we want to seek out, we encourage that action. So like
Mhm.
if we have a friend come to visit, or if Josh is out of town for some reason, then there's another friend is in that area. He's like, hey, is it cool if I meet up with so and so and like we get a little crazy? And I'm like, yeah, just be
A little
safe and
crazy.
protection and blah blah blah. But when it comes to, at least in my mind, like I was also very monogamous in the very beginning. I was very much just like, I'm gonna have one person, and that one person is gonna be my everything. And I truly have no issue with monogamy. I'm not saying monogamy is a bad thing. People make it work, and I'm very happy for that. I just have noticed how much that it's really hard for me to just realize that this one person isn't obligated to be my everything. Like
That
everyone is their own individual self.
Mhm.
I know that no matter who I find, I can't force them to be what I think my other half should be. Like, I respect my partner for their individuality. Like, obviously, it's great to share a lot of things in common, but, there might be a system where, like, maybe they want to see somebody, but like, I'm still their number one. Like, the big thing that we always talk
Yeah.
about is like, we could go sleep with however many people we want, but like, we will always be in the same bed together. Like, we will always end the day together.
The
And
phrase that we used early on in our relationship, especially because we started long distance and that kind of spurned this whole like talking about all these things early for us, and especially for me, it was a big deal to be open because we were long distance. But it was the fact that we always said to each other at the end of the night, I'm always hanging my hat on you. And that was our little romance
Yeah.
thing that like helped reassure each other that like, no,
Yeah.
we're really in this emotionally.
There is really something about like because I've had the opportunity to express similarly, but my partner and I we're poly open, and it's like, aren't you worried? Like, baby, what am I worried about? What am I worried about? I'm fantastic. I know good as shit. He ain't fucking getting this good shit anywhere else. Like, I am not worried about any fucking one else. He could be sucking the dick of Jesus. Jesus does not offer what I fucking offer. He could never. But like something that really resonated with me as I began, because I started up similarly, I think like a lot of people in monogamous relationships and sort of moved through that phasing. Um, the motif that people reference of if you love someone, set them free, the idea of the caged bird, and if they love you, when you set them free, they will return to you. And like the true freedom of like genuine and honest love is like you are not obligated to be with me. Therefore, I know you choose to be with me. Like, I am not thinking I have to lock you down into a monogamous relationship, that you only have sex with me, and that you have a baby with me, and so you are morally obligated to stay with me. Because, like, all of that is an entrapment, and that will never breed anything but a resentment. Whereas if you give people the space and the freedom to simply be their fullest selves, they have all the choice in the world, but they stay with you, you know definitively and without objection that they choose you. And that is such a beautiful comfort. In my relationship with my partner Tom, I have never once in any aspect ever felt like I was not chosen. And so when you have that safety, you can be yourself more authentically. And when you love someone at their fullest, you get to experience it in a way that no one else does. That is a privilege for you. And also, what you said earlier, Izzy, the whole like I'm not putting the pressure on you to be my everything. Like that is tea when you are in a monogamous relationship. And again, no shade to the monogamous people out there, but that form of relationship is rooted in the notion that that one person you are with will provide the perfect coupling of sex, of emotion, that everything will always be what it needs to be, and that it'll all function, and maybe it will. But I was saying just earlier, how many gainers come into even just a cash chat, projecting that expectation directly onto you. This is my sex, my kink, the specific way that I want it done. And I simply presume that you and I will be a perfect enmeshment. Not because I've had this conversation with you or done any work to learn anything about you. I just know that this is what I like, and I just expect that you will like it too. And I think that is how some people approach relationships, especially when it comes to the idea of monogamy, and that I just don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I never expected when we started a relationship. I mean, like, I've had serious relationships before, but they really truthfully did not last longer than 5 months. And I'm floored that I've been in a relationship this long. My sister would applaud me. But me personally, I just never expected that I would change so much. I never expected that I would learn to negotiate so much and that I would compromise, like learn to really like seek out my partner's feelings first and then also look after my own. And I feel comfortable doing so. And it's very balanced doing so because I know Izzy would do the same for me. It just like, it takes a lot to get there. And it's not going to just like arrive at some point and you can coast. There's pretty consistent negotiations that always happen and will always happen.
And that's definitely the big thing right there. It's like, even if you find someone that like perfectly meshes with you, like there's going to be work done. Like we are in different points of our lives. I could be great, I could be not great. And, it's
I'm
things
32 and aching all the time.
But it really is just understanding that, like it isn't going to be easy. It's not going to be a cakewalk. There will be work that needs to be put into it, but whatever effort you put in will come back out in a more satisfactory way. And that's what we are. And, I've always believed in putting in work into things. And, like we always say, like putting your hat on you means like I'm willing to put the work into you because I know it's worth it. And that's what we are. And I know it's going to be a lot of work even from here on out. And I really don't care because it's with him. So
it's not a cakewalk, but we love to walk to the cake.
You love to walk to the cake. I need to take a second here because Izzy, when you speak, it's the way that Josh looks at you that I'm just like, oh, that is gorgeous. That's so gorgeous. Oh my God, you're so fucking cute. God damn it.
I think it's thanks to this conversation that I finally figured out why I was a tramp. I went out into the world thinking that I was an incomplete person, so I tried to find it under every man.
Under or over? I thought you were top.
Over, yeah, technically over. But that doesn't sound as Blanche Devereaux as if I say every under man, under every man.
You know what? I think for this episode, we had a number of different questions that we really wanted to ask you about, things like what have you learned, advice for people. But honestly, I think we're really talking around a lot of this good stuff. Like, what was something that you were maybe the most surprised by in your relationship with another gainer?
Because I literally forgot what we talked about earlier.
Yeah, we did like a quick debrief. We're like, all right, let's go through what we need to, keep it out.
I think that I mentioned it earlier, but I was just surprised. I was surprised to change so much, and I was also surprised that like it wasn't the constant like interest in the kink most of the time. Like obviously, like I realized I'm entering into a relationship with another human being, and like that's kink isn't everything. But I guess that I was surprised that like, and I don't think this was any fault of yours, babe, but like that I had such an emphasis on kink and I was so eager to like engage in kink, and that other people would just be like, well, yeah, that's nice, but there's other stuff too. And I was just like, my whole bubble was burst over that. It took me a minute to kind of like recoil and like make my own expectations more equalized in that respect.
Yeah, and just a little tidbit of info going off of that kind of thinking for Josh, like you did come out like a little bit later in life. You did kind of have
that's fair.
You had a very different introduction to all of this. And, I don't want to say that it was later behind because that's not true at all. It's just
But it was though. Like I didn't like come out as a gay man until I was 24. Like I didn't go to a drinking college. I had to sign contracts not to drink and not have sex. Like it was like a very different upbringing until I was 24, and learning life stuff was just much later and more difficult for me.
Yeah, and by that time, I was like, I've been out for at least 10 years, been in and out of relationships when it came, mainly civilian relationships, but so many gainer influences. And then, I feel like I've lived 3 other lives since then in my gainer world. And at that time, I was like very secure and confident in what I was looking for, the pace I wanted to go. So kind of having this little clash of being like, oh, you're just really excited about this. And like,
I was a puppy. I still am.
Yeah, it's that's there's a lot of pups that are gainers, a lot. And I mean, I think you remember from coming to Claw last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was I going to say? Oh, it was just when you said your bubble got burst over things. It's kind of like, speaking of Claw, I've taken a few virgins to Claw before, and they're very much into one thing until they go there and they see all this other stuff is going on. And I don't know if it necessarily burst their bubble about their first like initial gateway kink, but like in the case of my beta puppy, he went hog wild.
That's wild. I mean, in a good way. Because I think that even just our little exposure to Claw, we didn't really go to a ton of classes or anything, but it certainly opened up my mind to a lot more intersectionality, not even just between like gainer kinks like inflation, blueberry, etc., but like also the chance that we got to talk to other people that were into other kinks that are kind of just like conjoined very loosely by the word leather. It was just very, very interesting to see people's genuine interest in like learning something that they may or may not be interested in.
Because you can relate so much of it to the Dom sub point of view. Like we've talked about it before, how like gaining and fetism does fall under the BDSM umbrella.
People like gaining and fetism is the fucking weirdest thing out there. I swear to God, some of these fags be out here like, no one will ever understand me. And I'm like, motherfucker, some bitches are out here needing you to fucking slice their arms off to get an erection, okay? I just want to eat some motherfucking cake. Like, like so many of us are so much more on the vanilla side than we recognize. Also, to that point, there is a big difference between being pro your gaining kink and being kink positive. Because there
Mhm.
are a lot of gainers out there who love to be all, I'm into being death fed and being, destroyed with food. But the idea of people doing ABDL is really cringe and creepy to me. All those pups must be secret, fucking sleeping with animals. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just
I
that.
find that there's a bit of, I'm sorry to interrupt that, but it's funny that you say that because I find a bit of discrimination in the gainer circuit against macro. A lot of people have very negative opinions about macro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally get it.
Okay. I've said this before about fags who are sexist, right? When you come out as gay and you realize that you're gay, you have the opportunity to unpick your worldview, which is something I had to do. We shared this before, Josh, on the episode about religion and faith. Growing
Oh,
up in
yeah.
the church, for me, didn't just mean going, oh, well, I guess gay is okay and that's all I had to do. I ended up unpicking everything, and I had to in order for me to feel at peace with my worldview. And thank God I did, because, and I've said this before, I held sexist, racist views that were emphasized by the church that I was a part of. But there are plenty of people where all they did was decide, I guess I like men and not women. And they just picked up their shit, and instead of offering it to women, they just started offering it to men instead, and did none of the work to unpack that sexist bullshit. Same thing happens with gaining. People go through this dance that we all do of, oh, well, it's wrong to want to be fat, yada, yada, yada. And then you finally decide, okay, I want to be fat, I want to be a gainer, I want to be cool with gaining. Great. But they do none of the necessary mental work to unpack the sex phobia, the kink phobia that is inherent in so many of us. And then just put it on other people's shoulders to have to shoulder that responsibility. And it's nonsense, but it happens.
It's weird to me how minorities in a sex kink way and minorities in a race way or minorities in a sexual preference oppression way, like oppressed groups oppress each other. And that's weird. It's just weird.
Hurt
Because
people,
also
hurt
like that
people.
takes effort to learn about other people that may
That's
not.
how they divide and conquer, darling. Yeah, that's what they want. They want us to infight because then we'll destroy ourselves.
And that's why I want to learn about macro shit. You know what I mean?
I don't know why that one specifically. I think that a few people that I've talked to that were against it were like because people are not respectful in DMs and like request some really weird and crazy shit from them. So that's kind of put them off of it.
Yeah.
Albeit I could always say, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, Mpreg, same thing.
Honestly, I started asking people in the topic of MPreg. Like, I know Izzy's gotten a million messages about it, and he's not personally into it. But I started getting like, I mean, just you're shaped a certain way that like is very appealing to that.
Well, I mean, I'll get at Mad James about it too, but like,
You
I
used to
will.
say you did a lot.
And I mean, granted, I do enjoy the shape of a belly that is very reminiscent to Mpreg for sure. I'm not exactly into it myself. I will indulge once in a while about it purely, because I think the shape is hot at least.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing. It's like, like I'm not really into it all the way, but there are some things I can find about it that are hot. So like, obviously I'll keep it as genuine as possible and I will go as far as I want to with it. But, I am open to most things.
Yeah. And it's like I kind of became curious about it because like he was telling me about his DMs and stuff like that. And I learned of a friend of mine that like sort of came out to me as an MPreg lover. Oh no, it's in his like non-gainer relationship or whatever. There's actually a lot of people out there that are very into it. But I started just asking people in general, and like this goes for any kink, just start like genuinely being inquisitive and like ask people like, why is this hot to you? Like in a in a better phrased way than that. Or like, oh, that's very exciting. Like, how can I role play better with you about this? Because like this is really hot. And if I look like what you're looking for, then like awesome. Only recently I've started to attract more of that crowd myself because like of my height and stature, I've finally gotten big enough that that kind of looks like what I'm presenting. And so it's just interesting to kind of like pick people's brain and be like, well, if you find me hot, I kind of want to know why. You know what I mean?
And also, with your long hair, like, don't wear organic cotton, girly, because they're gonna come and they're gonna be like, "Oh my God!" Like, I feel like they're gonna ask you to give the fantasy. Goddamn.
Mpreg Jesus.
Oh my God, yeah.
Literally, when we did Grommr the previous year, he brought like a moo style kind of
Oh
thing.
my God, I
And
forgot.
let me tell you, it was all those fantasies that you could have thought they would have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, she's eating for two now. God.
Bro, I was eating ice cream for two. That was a great cruise.
Oh my God. The amount of like fake we're expecting photos that we did with each other were like, oh my God, like all those like
Honestly,
really
it's kind of fun to play in a
cheesy
fantasy
gender
sometimes.
reveal videos where it's like, I put a bun in his oven and like
Oh
it
my
was
God, wait, have you seen the one? It's the girl and her man, and she's always doing those videos where like she's got like a fake belly, and she's like, oh, this Halloween he really knew how to stuff my pumpkin or some bullshit, and like,
yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh
I've
yeah.
seen her too, and it's like all like the different like things that she does that just makes it as cringy and like making fun of all like the stereotypical straight couples posting stuff like that. And it's like it's like borderline almost offensive.
yeah. Ooh, Daddy filled me with his butterbeer this year.
Oh,
Oh,
They
just
why is
just
it
keep getting more.
every time I hear that shit, I just, and I know this is not what happens in those films, but it just makes me think of all those goddamn Hallmark movies.
Hmm. I feel like we had a lot of that too. I think a lot of it is also
Mhm.
just kind of like the idea of what it means to be like in a gainer relationship. Because
Ooh. I think
what?
even just like initial dating. We didn't talk about like initial dating and like what were we looking for necessarily. I mean, we kind of like talked about like we weren't looking for anybody serious, but like we talked about like what are some challenges that like other gainer folks face and like that we faced like trying to date other gainer people before we found each other.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, like Josh is the only gainer person I've dated. I've actually told all of my previous civilian relationships about gaining in some sort of context, and they were all like, I know not everyone can speak for that, but they all fared very well. In fact, my first boyfriend actually was very on board with doing it with me, which I thought was super great at the time when we were still like a thing. But, it just also made me realize how much easier it was to just date within the community. And I know people have their opinions about when it comes to there are a lot of gainers out there that feel like it's really hard to date in the community, and that's completely understandable for the reasons that we've talked about. And so some people are like, I only exclusively date gainers or feeders, and there are people who are like, I don't even date anybody in my community because it's just so hard. And so I feel like what a lot of people it's whatever you're looking for. Like, I'm not going to say what's the right way to do it when you're in this community, but it's really all just about finding the person that works for you, being able to share your goals with that person, and just, being able to be happy with each other and who they are.
Mm-hmm.
this ends up being the question that it comes down to, like with all the dating trope episodes, right? Like, how do you find a gainer partner? How do you find a partner suitable in this community? And I feel like a big part of what this episode boils down to is it's not about one or the other. I think it's about understanding that if you want a relationship that is pro gaining, how do you best develop your understanding of your own wants and needs and how those need to be met and fulfilled? Do you understand how you can feel satisfied in that relationship dynamic before meeting the other person? Because as you all have been expressing with openness, like sometimes it's about what you can do together, sometimes it's about what you do with other people. It's all very valid, but yeah, maybe it comes down to people putting too much stock in what someone can perform for you, and rather than loving them as they are and finding the freedom within that to show up for one another.
That's a wonderful, succinct way to say it.
Yeah, and it very much boils down to the point of like, it really is just finding, what you want your partner to flourish in, how you want to help with that.
And also for me, it was learning how to slow the fuck down. As like, I don't know if there are many neurodivergent people also in this gainer kink and stuff like that, because I find a lot of musicians and doctors and like
Yes.
no one's really exempt from this kink, really. And as a neurodivergent person, it's really important to learn to like rest with my partner and not do the gainer thing all the time with my partner.
Mm-hmm.
I learned to reinvest myself in video games, and I haven't played video games since I was in high school. It's been like 15 years, and I suck at video games now. But we're trying to play Kirby again, and it's really cute.
That's amazing. But I want to ask here, as we're approaching the end of the episode, was there anything else that you all would like to talk about? Any sage words of advice from a power gainer couple that you'd like to share with everyone?
really it's just about, listening to your partner and just really always being on the same page as much as possible. And also understanding when you're not on the same page and just doing what you can to help each other get back to that place. There's going to be times where I'm on top of the world and there's times where everything's on fire. And it's just
Yep.
the matter of, helping and talking to my partner and be like, hey, this is where I'm at in life right now. Little help? And then they're like, yeah.
Yeah. And I would also say, like, like James, you said so many times, doing the work is so important. If you are doing the work by yourself, if you're doing the work by talking to a trusted friend, if you're doing the work by talking to a therapist, which is always valid, don't ever think that your therapist is going to think that gainer things are weird, because I just came right out, guns a-blazing the first therapy session with mine. And she was like, cool, cool, cool. I actually heard of that and like totally get it. Like, how does this apply to you? So you think that there's going to be not an amount of understanding, or you're going to spend your whole therapy session explaining, and you won't. But also, my final piece of advice is it's not that serious. Like, don't take yourself so seriously that you have to do it perfect, or it's always going to be great, or you have to like feel like you're always doing your best, because sometimes you just don't have it in you, and that's okay. And I think that people are more understanding than you think. And if your person's not understanding, that's not the person for you.
I love it. Tim, any revelations from today's conversation?
Just like I said, I think because I went into the world thinking that I was incomplete. That's probably why I slept around so much. So thank you for that. I don't know if I was ready for that revelation today.
You're welcome.
You beautiful little whore, you.
Well, it's a beautiful thing, even at Tim's advanced age, he can still learn new things, and there's so many wonderful years ahead of you at
Are there?
At Shady Pines Retirement Facility.
Assuming I live that long.
Oh, God almighty. But no, I think today's been a cracker episode as always. It's always a delight to talk to you both. We adore you, and I want to say thank you for being so willing to be open about your relationship. And, it can be challenging to be candid, both just talking about it in general, but also together in the same conversation. But I think even just listening to the two of you banter, it really is indicative of the strength of the relationship that you've built together, which is quite the beautiful thing. And I really hope the listeners, the takeaway from today's conversation is it's possible. You can have a wonderful relationship. It may not look like what you have built it up in your mind to look, but if you are open to the possibility and you are centering that openness, that communication, the joy of the person that you want to be with, I think there's a great chance that you could have a really wonderfully fulfilling relationship. So,
Of course, and we are, by no means the paragon of a gainer relationship. We are
well,
just
you are
one.
the example.
Okay, with trying to be humble.
I'm crazy.
but we are just one of many of the ones out there. And, like, we are happy that we're able to tell our story on a platform like this. And, we've gotten to a point where we feel comfortable about this too. And that was, by no means without any other issues that we've had to deal with.
Oh my God, yes.
So we're just happy that, we're able to talk about that. And hopefully, seeing this message reach other people, rather they're in committed relationships with gainers, without gainers, the little lovesick ones that are out there really trying to find their other half. I don't want to say other half, actually, their partner, the one that they hope they can find one day. We're just hoping that this reaches out to them and they can understand, like, hey, we're here. I mean, it's possible for us at least. So, it's probably possible for you guys.
Yeah.
And a very last minute thing is go where the people are. Like, Izzy and I were long distance for a very long time. And finally, he moved in with me only recently. Like, actually into our apartment. He moved to Grand Rapids before that. But like, still, that's what really made it work too.
Yeah.
So, like,
asterisk, long distance, but in the same state. I don't want to say like we're like, oh, I flew 10,000 miles to go to him. It's like,
hey, some people
distance.
I know of another gainer couple that's doing between Georgia and Paris right now. It's insane. But
yeah, I think I know the couple you're talking about. But no, you're absolutely right. Sometimes you have different challenges and you have to find ways to make it work. And I love that you reference the fact that, things haven't necessarily always been hunky-dory. That's the same thing with most couples and relationships. And obviously next episode, we're going to get into that. We're going to ask you to have it out right there on the call. And we're going to, we're going to live counsel therapy. It's a new thing we're trying on Thicc Radio, which is, I don't know. We'll think.
Blood wrestling?
I don't think that we can cover the liability insurance on that one, Dave.
Is that going to be our Jerry Springer themed episode?
That will be. You're both going to have to put on really stereotypical redneck accents and just come out with all sorts of things, and then we're going to broadcast it, and then we'll do it Drag Race style, where it'll be like, I never thought I was going to have to make a post about this, but she's a bitch and she's a cunt, and just have it, Well, it'll be great. But no, thank you both for being with us today. Where can the listeners find each of you online?
You can find me on Instagram. My Gainer account is belly_Duval. I am also on Grommr with the username sayonarawildhearts.
I am on Grommr as whyhellohairy, the hair on your head kind of hairy. And I'm on Instagram as hungry.hungryhimbo. Oh, and BlueSky. I forgot BlueSky as well as hungry.hungryhimbo.
Well, that's a wrap for now here on Thicc Radio. Please remember to like, subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and please, you'll leave us a good review. If you liked this episode, the podcast, our guests, or just us in general, please share it with your friends and encourage them to tune in. You can find me on Instagram and BlueSky at stannnum.
And you can find me on Instagram at thiccmouse and Grommr at orpheus. You can also look us up on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Thicc Radio, or on our website at podpage.com/Thicc Radio. If you want to become a financial supporter of the show, you can donate to our PayPal, and you can always write to us at thiccradio@gmail.com. So until next time, bye, Fats.
Bye, Fats.
Bye,
Au revoir,
Fats.
Let's talk about it.
Thicc Radio is a Spotify podcast
Artwork, media design, editing, and production by James Heinzen.
with original theme music by CYMK.